My name is Sarah Jennings, and I work as a bank teller at a busy city bank branch. Not too long ago, I moved here from a much quieter neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. I've always enjoyed the energy and constant buzz of downtown city life, but I've never let go of the caution I grew up with back home. Late autumn in the city wraps everything in a chilly breeze, and the days get dark pretty early, which adds a bit of a gloomy feel to the evenings. One of the things I liked about moving to the city was the idea of meeting new people and leaving behind some of the old faces from my suburban hometown. But there was one person from back home I couldn't seem to shake off: Joe. He used to run the garage store in my old neighborhood and was a regular at the small bank branch where I worked. I remembered him because he always made me feel a bit uneasy, though I couldn't quite put my finger on why at the time. Since I started working at this new branch, Joe started showing up here too. Every day, without fail, he'd come in to make tiny deposits or ask for change. It was odd because there was no logical reason for him to be here in the city, especially so far from his garage store. Yet, there he was, always insisting that I be the one to help him. His presence became more and more unsettling, and I felt the tension building every time he walked through the door. Joe's transactions weren't just small, they were unnecessary, like he was looking for excuses to come in. What made it even more uncomfortable was how he'd act overly familiar with me, always trying to chat about personal things or asking about my family back in our old neighborhood, as if he had a right to know. I tried to tell myself he was just being friendly in his own way, but things got weirder. I started noticing him during my lunch breaks. He would be across the street, just standing there, watching me as I walked to the nearby cafe or sat on a park bench. It felt like he was always there, blending into the background, his eyes following my every move. Then one day, things took a turn that really unnerved me. I reached into my purse to grab my wallet, and my fingers brushed against something unexpected. It was a small, worn-out toy, a little wooden horse that I recognized instantly. It was my favorite toy as a child, one I hadn't seen in years since I lost it back in my hometown. How it ended up in my purse was a mystery that seriously freaked me out. The only person I could think of who knew so much about my past was Joe. Just when I thought it couldn't get any creepier, I arrived at work one morning to find a bouquet of flowers waiting for me at my teller station. Attached to it was a note from Joe. It read, "To the one who understands me." I felt cold from discomfort. While my co-workers cooed over the romantic gesture, I felt more isolated than ever. They couldn't see the sinister side of Joe's attention that I felt looming over me, making each day harder to face than the last. It was a cold, dark evening when I was working late at the bank. Most of my co-workers had already left, and the usual hustle of the city seemed quieter outside. As I locked up my station and headed towards the exit, a nagging feeling told me to glance through the window before stepping out. That's when I saw him. Joe was there in the parking lot, leaning against my car, as if he had been waiting for me for a while. I became instantly aware of my heart beating super hard and fast, but I knew I had to walk out eventually. Gathering all the courage I had, I stepped into the cool night air. Joe straightened up as he saw me, a strange smile playing on his lips. "Sarah, we need to talk about our connection," he called out, his voice eerily calm. "We have a shared path that you need to see." I wanted to run right then, but he was blocking my path to the bus stop. Reluctantly, I stopped a few feet away from him, demanding, "What do you mean, Joe?" He reached into his coat and pulled out an old, battered box. Opening it, he revealed a collection of items from my childhood. Photographs of me playing in my old backyard, my long-lost wooden horse, and letters I wrote to imaginary friends. "See, these things brought us together. They're signs of our destiny," he said, his eyes gleaming with a disturbing intensity. I felt an ice-cold chill down my spine. "Joe, you need to leave me alone. This isn't normal or right," I stammered, backing away. But he stepped forward, his hand reaching out as if to grab me. "You can't leave now. You know the truth." I turned and ran towards the bank's entrance, hearing his footsteps pounding on the pavement behind me. He shouted, Sarah, don't make me come for you. I reached the bank door, fumbling with my keys, hands shaking uncontrollably. Just as Joe was almost upon me, I managed to unlock the door and hurl myself inside, slamming it shut and locking it immediately. I leaned against the door, gasping for breath, as Joe reached the other side. He began to bang on the glass furiously, yelling for me to come out. His face pressed against the glass, his expression twisted into one of obsession and anger. I stumbled back, heart pounding in my ears, and dialed the police with trembling fingers. All I could do was watch as he continued to pound on the door, his shouts muffled by the thick glass. As I leaned against the bank door, watching Joe bang on the glass, I quickly called the police on my phone. My voice shook as I explained to the dispatcher what was happening. They told me to stay calm and that officers were on their way. I crouched below the windows, out of Joe's sight, my heart pounding so hard it echoed in my ears. Within minutes, which felt like hours to me, I heard the distant sirens growing louder. The sound made Joe pause, and he looked around, a confused and scared expression replacing his anger. As the police cars pulled into the parking lot, their lights flashing brightly in the dark, Joe took a few steps back from the door. The officers approached him cautiously, and I watched from inside as they handcuffed him. They led him away from the bank, and one officer came to check on me. I unlocked the door, still shaking, and explained everything that had happened. The relief of seeing them and knowing I was safe was overwhelming. I almost couldn't believe that it was finally over. Later, I learned that the police had searched Joe's car and found it filled with surveillance equipment, cameras, binoculars, and a detailed journal he had kept. The journal was filled with notes about my routines, movements, and even conversations he had overheard. It was clear from the evidence that Joe had been planning to abduct me, watching and waiting for the perfect moment. Knowing how close I had come to real danger, I felt a deep sense of relief wash over me. The police assured me that Joe would face serious charges, and that I wouldn't have to worry about him again. As I sat in the back of the police car, giving my statement, the fear began to drain away, replaced by a profound gratitude for the quick response of the police and the end of this terrifying ordeal. I always thought sharing my life online was safe, just a fun way to connect and share beauty tips and daily adventures from my apartment here in the heart of a busy city. My name is Jenna, and being a social media influencer was my dream job, until it turned into a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. It all started with a few strange comments on my posts. At first, I brushed them off as typical internet trolls, but then things escalated in ways I never imagined. What began as simple interactions soon spiraled into a horrifying experience that showed me the dark side of being in the public eye. At first, the comments on my social media posts seemed like the usual online noise. Some were mean, others just weird, but I didn't think much of it. That's just the internet, right? But then, the comments started getting specific, really specific. They mentioned the cafe I had visited that morning or the color of the dress I had just bought. Details I hadn't even posted about. Things got scarier quickly. One night as I was cooking dinner, my phone pinged with a message from an unknown number. "I like the pasta you're making," it read. I froze. My curtains were drawn, and I hadn't shared anything about my dinner plans. How could anyone know? That's when it hit me. Someone was watching me closely, maybe even from somewhere near my apartment. The worst part came a few days later. I found a small package right outside my door. No return address, just a plain brown box. Inside was a USB drive. Curiosity overpowered my fear for a moment, and I plugged it into my computer. What I saw made my heart stop. A video montage of my recent activities, all taken from a distance but clear enough to see it was me. Walking my dog, laughing with friends, coming and going from my apartment. The footage was accompanied by a note that simply stated, "I'm always watching you." The realization that someone had been following me, documenting my movements, was utterly terrifying. During one of my regular evening live streams, where I was sharing some makeup tips, I noticed a sudden flash from outside my window. It startled me, and for a moment, I froze, brush in hand. Turning slowly towards the window, my heart dropped as I saw a shadowy figure with a camera lurking in the bushes across from my apartment. I quickly pretended everything was fine, ended the stream, and locked myself in my bedroom, shaking uncontrollably. The situation only got worse from there. Soon after, I started receiving chilling messages from the stalker. They weren't just watching anymore. Now, they were threatening to come inside. One message read, "See you soon, Jenna. Can't wait to meet in person." Terrified, I upgraded my home security system and posted a message to my followers, sharing a blurred image of the figure and asking if anyone recognized them. The community response was overwhelming, but no one could identify the stalker. A few days later, during another live session, this time trying to reassure my viewers, and myself, that everything was under control, my doorbell began to ring incessantly. I tried to ignore it and continue with the live stream, but then loud bangs erupted from my back door. My viewers could hear everything, and the fear in my voice was unmistakable. I whispered that someone was trying to break in, and hundreds of comments flooded in, urging me to call the police. The climax of this nightmare came when I received an email during the live session. The sender was, once again, my stalker. With my heart in my throat, I clicked the link in the email, only to be directed to a website displaying live footage of the inside and outside of my apartment. Cameras had been secretly installed everywhere, in my living room, my hallway, even pointing at my front door from the outside. It was clear then that this person hadn't just been watching me online. They had invaded every part of my life, monitoring my every move from both near and far. The realization that I was never alone, that every moment of my supposed privacy had been watched, left me feeling helpless and terrified. I knew I had to act fast to protect myself and end this invasion once and for all. When I realized I was in real danger during the live session, my followers immediately sprang into action. People from all over were commenting, trying to help. Some of them were tech-savvy and started to piece together clues from my videos and the stalker's messages. They managed to capture screenshots from the live stream and even traced the IP address of the email link to a location near my apartment. One of my followers called the police and provided them with all the digital evidence we had collected together. The support of my online community was incredible. Without them, I don't know how I would have handled everything. After all that happened, the police tried their best, but the stalker got away. They couldn't find him, even with all the clues and help from my followers. This left me feeling really unsure and scared because I didn't know if or when he might try to come back. Because of this, I had to think hard about how I share my life online. I decided to be much more careful about what I post, keeping my personal details private. It was a big change because sharing was such a big part of my life, but feeling safe was more important. This whole scary experience showed me how vulnerable we can be online, and it made me want to help others learn about online safety. Even though the stalker wasn't caught, the support from my community gave me strength. It's tough not knowing if the danger is really over, but I've learned how to be stronger and smarter about protecting myself. Now, I focus on helping others feel safer too. Every morning, just as the city starts to wake up, I lace up my sneakers and hit the pavement as I head out for a run. It's my favorite part of the day. I'm Emily, by the way. I moved to this city not long ago for a new job in software development. The streets near my place are usually quiet, lined with small homes and the occasional park, perfect for someone like me who loves to run. But lately, those peaceful runs have felt different. The empty streets and quiet corners of the neighborhood that I once enjoyed now make me uneasy. There's a chill in the air that doesn't come from the autumn breeze. It feels like someone's watching me. This isn't just my imagination, and it's turning my morning routine into something I dread. It started subtly, almost too small to notice. A few weeks into my new routine, I saw a gray sedan parked along my usual running route. I didn't think much of it at first. Cars park on streets all the time. But then, I saw it again the next day, and the day after that, always in different spots, but always somewhere along my path. One morning, that same sedan sped up just as it passed me. The sudden roar of the engine made my heart jump. I glanced over and caught the briefest glimpse of the driver, his face shadowed and unreadable. Shaken, I cut my run short and headed home, trying to convince myself it was just a coincidence. The next day, I changed my route. I thought that would solve the problem, but it didn't. When I got home, tucked under my door, I found a note. It was just a plain piece of paper with a few words scribbled on it. I saw you change your path today. No name, no other clues. Whoever wrote that note was watching me closely, too closely. My sense of safety began to crumble. Every morning, the thrill of my run was overshadowed by fear, turning each corner into a potential surprise. I wasn't just running for exercise anymore. I was running with the unsettling feeling that I wasn't alone. One morning, I decided to run at a different time, hoping to shake the uneasy feeling that had taken over my routine. But as I stepped outside, there it was again. That gray sedan, parked right across the street from my house. My heart sank. It was clear now. This wasn't just about my running route. This person knew where I lived. The next day, something even more unsettling happened. I found a package at my doorstep. Inside was a new pair of running shoes, exactly like the ones I'd recently lost at the gym. Tucked inside one of the shoes was a note that read, "Better for running towards me." My hands trembled as I held it. This person wasn't just watching me from afar. They knew intimate details about my life. Things got worse. That evening when I came home from work, I noticed the back door was slightly open. I hadn't left it like that. Stepping inside, my breath caught in my throat. Spread out across the living room floor were dozens of photos of me running, taken from different angles and times. Someone had been following me for a long time, documenting my every move. The real terror struck late one night when I was jolted awake by a noise outside my bedroom window. Heart pounding, I crept to the window and peered out. There, in the faint glow of the streetlight, was a man holding a camera. Our eyes met, and a cold smile spread across his face. He started to pry the window open. Panicked, I backed away from the window, my mind racing. I knew I had to act fast. This was no longer just a feeling of being watched. It was an immediate threat. As the stalker worked to force the window open, I knew I had to do something. Remembering the advice from a neighbor and a security workshop I attended, I had rigged a homemade alarm system just in case. With shaking hands, I activated it. Suddenly, the quiet night erupted into loud sirens and flashing lights from the alarm. The stalker froze, caught off guard by the noise and light. His moment of hesitation was all I needed. I sprinted to the back door, slipped through, and ran as fast as I could down the street. I headed straight to a friend's house who lived nearby. I had called her earlier when I first felt uneasy about the noises, telling her I might need help. As I reached her house, panting and scared, she quickly let me in. Alerted by the alarm, other neighbors had come outside to see what was happening. Together, they approached my house just as the stalker was trying to escape, now thwarted by the attention he had attracted. My friend and the neighbors detained him, carefully keeping him at a distance until the police arrived, which wasn't long given the disturbance. The police took him into custody, and as they led him away, the weight of what had been terrorizing me for weeks finally lifted. I was safe, surrounded by friends and neighbors who had rushed to my aid. The relief was overwhelming, and in that moment, I realized just how much danger I had been in, and how fortunate I was to have such a supportive community around me. After that night, the man who had been stalking me was arrested and charged. The court issued a restraining order, and he underwent a psychological evaluation. I was safe, physically, but the fear I felt during those weeks left a deep mark on me. For a while, I couldn't bring myself to go on my morning runs, the very thing that used to start my day on such a positive note. Instead, I joined a local gym and started attending community safety workshops. As I reflect on everything that happened, I realize how crucial it is to be prepared and aware of our surroundings. But more than that, I learned the incredible strength of community. My friends and neighbors came together when I needed them the most, and it's their support that helped me through one of the darkest times in my life.